Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 5:32. Would our student trustee, Ms. Martinez Jimenez, please lead us in the flag salute?
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. President Joey Acuña Jr.
Here.
Vice President Jocelyn Vargas.
Here.
Silvia Paz. Trinidad Arredondo.
Present.
Valerie Garcia.
Present.
Jesus Gonzalez. Student Trustee Isabela Jimenez.
Present.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, closed session public comments. Public comments, this is an opportunity for members of the public to address the governing board regarding any closed session items within the board's subject matter jurisdiction. Please complete a request to address the governing board form and hand it to the recording secretary. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes per person with the maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. First up, we have Mary Meyer, CVTA. She has 2 items. You have 6 minutes.
.4 and 2.7?
That's what you marked, yeah.
Okay, so originally I was going to read for somebody who wasn't going to be here, but that person is here, so they can they read for themselves for 2.7?
I need one of these.
Well, I asked and I was told just to do it this way.
Which one are you going to speak on?
I'm going to read 2.4.
Go ahead.
Okay. So Mary Meyer, elementary member at large, speaking on behalf of CVTA. Regarding labor negotiations, making the decision to cancel already scheduled negotiation dates shows that once again, the district is not planning to negotiate in good faith. We had 3 scheduled dates that have been canceled and no future dates are on the calendar. This is a consistent issue with this school board when it comes to CVTA negotiations. But there seems to be no issue with the ongoing CSEA negotiations. We would like it on record that this is just one more example of an unfair labor practice in your work with CVTA, an example of differential treatment in how you work with both labor organizations.
Thank you.
And Blanca Ramirez is here for 2.7.
Hi, I wasn't going to speak. I was very nervous, but this is something that is very dear to me, so I thought that it should be me speaking, even though I'm a little nervous. So my name is Blanca Ramirez. I am speaking here as a community member. I am also a teacher, but I'm not here as a teacher. I'm here as someone who has grown up in the desert, attended Palmview, Bobby Duke, and CV High School. Mr. Arredondo's father was my 3rd grade teacher. And I've known all of you at some capacity through my life here. So I'm gonna start, So I want to bring attention to the new district policy of busing students to neighboring schools when a specific grade they're trying to enroll in is at capacity. The current policy allows for one sibling to remain at their home school while forcing the other sibling to transfer to a neighboring school due to...
Excuse me, can I ask you a question? Is this a closed session item?
Yes, it's for employment. Okay.
Unemployment.
To transfer to neighboring schools due to their specific grade level being at capacity. Dr. Esparza mentioned that this is due to the cost it would require to hire an additional teacher at that site. As an employee of this district for over 24 years, it is the first time that caps have been set for specific grade levels and not due to facility limitations. Our sites have the facilities to accommodate these students. Dr. Esparza feels that hiring more teachers is too costly to the district. This policy affects our most vulnerable population, which is our migrant students. These families are beginning to return only to be told we cannot enroll all of their children at their home site. This policy damages the homeschool connection as it leaves families unwelcomed at their own neighboring schools. Our schools are the center of the community. I am sure we can find alternatives to balanced budgets that don't directly impact students and families. Please consider revisiting this policy and hiring more teachers to accommodate these students, as this policy is cruel and mean-spirited. Thank you.
Jeff Kruger, CVTA.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Kruger. I'm Vice President of CVTA. I'm speaking on behalf of our members. This is in relation to closed session item 2.7, employment. There are three concerns to address under this agenda item. First is the concern that the district continues to approve hiring consultants to provide virtual speech and language services. This is not in the best interest of students needing these services. All students deserve an SLP who can meet with them in person to work on their speech goals. Students deserve to have a school board who pushes for improved hiring practices to seek out and hire actual in-person employees who can work closely with the students. We understand the need to provide services right away, even if they are virtual, but what are you doing to ensure that these virtual services won't be necessary for next year or even next month? The second item of concern is this board's current trajectory of reducing or eliminating educational requirements for administrative positions. On one hand, you push college preparedness as if it's the most important thing for our students, but on the other hand, you continue to approve administrative job descriptions with little to no college experience necessary. This is confusing and lacks transparency regarding your values around hiring highly qualified staff. For example, on the agenda tonight, you have a job description for a coordinator position that only requires 3 years of, quote, leadership experience and a BA. What does that look like? A grade level lead, union leadership, ASB leadership? The school board should always look for the most qualified person, not just someone with a little bit of experience. Our students deserve that. Finally, we have been without a true assistant superintendent of ed services for months. Dr. Esparza, as we understand it, continues to oversee that department and many others, and we know there is an interim in place also. But is the district actively seeking a permanent replacement or just having people who fill multiple roles at once running what is probably the most important department we have? What is best for our students? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I have a motion to go into closed session, please?
Motion.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second? I have a motion by Board Member Vargas, a second by,
Trini and then us.
was you first? Board Member Arredondo and Board Member Paz to go into closed session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Student trustee?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We'll be back at, what is it? 8 o'clock, Mike? Thank you. We'll be back at 8 o'clock. Welcome back. We had a motion and a second and a unanimous vote to return into open session. Could we please announce the items, the actions taken in closed session, please?
The board took the following action in closed session. Approved expulsion case 24/25-007 for AHP expulsion recommendation. Do I need to read the votes?
Yes.
Okay. The motion was made by Silvia Paz, second by Trinidad Arredondo, and the motion carried 6-0. The board took action during closed session to appoint James Stotler as Assistant Principal of Desert Mirage High School, effective November 15th, 2024. The motion was made by Trinidad Arredondo, second by Jocelyn Vargas, and the motion carried 6-0. The board took action during closed session to appoint Charles Lobo as Assistant Principal of Desert Mirage High School effective November 15th, 2024. The motion was made by Trinidad Arredondo, second by Jocelyn Vargas, and the motion carried 6-0. The board took action during closed session to appoint Ashley Wago as Assistant Principal of Toro Canyon Middle School effective November 15th. The motion was made by Trinidad Arredondo, second by Silvia Paz, and the motion carried 6-0. And the board took action during closed session to appoint Joanne Bailin as Elementary Assistant Principal at CVU Elementary, effective November 15th, 2024. The motion was made by Jesus Gonzalez, second by Trinidad Arredondo, and the motion carried 6-0.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion for approval of the agenda submitted? I have a motion here, second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Student trustee? Aye. Okay. You got me a big sticky note just because I didn't do very well last time, so I can remember. Moving on, item 4.1, board notifications, request to address the board. Introductory comments and requests to address the board on items on the adopted agenda and items not on the adopted agenda will be considered from the audience at this time. Please complete a request to address the governing board form and hand it into the recording secretary. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes per person with a maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. Additionally, the person making the request should state his or her name and the name of the organization or group represented. Please be advised that the board is not always at liberty to answer questions right away. State law prohibits the board from taking any action on items not on the listed agenda. First up, contract with GDS Consulting. Cindy Bradley, Tara Hitchens, Socorro Sanchez, Ed Services. Got it.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Esparza, President Acuna, Board, and Cabinet. My name is Cindy Bradley, and I'm the MTSS Coordinator in the Educational Services Department, and I am here with my MTSS directors. And on behalf of, we are here to speak on behalf of the work that we are doing with Gary D. Soto Consulting. I've had the pleasure to meet with Gary prior to our work within our contract now. When we decided to when we met with him, he spoke very highly of not only our students, but also our staff members. And he truly believes, has a passion for our students, are all willing to, can learn, can learn, and our educators cause learning. Within the first 2 months of our work, Gary supported our Ed Services Department on creating our instructional framework, which has been the center of many of our professional development trainings since this past August. We have trained over 90% of our educational staff since the start of our work with Mr. Soto.
Good evening. In looking at the in-person support that Mr. Soto provides, he has conducted 6 district leadership academies with principals and teachers on framework topics that build collective efficacy in our leadership teams. He has also conducted 18 principal one-on-one coaching sessions with more planned throughout the year. And he has also had 5 instructional coaches trainings providing feedback on coaching demonstrations and the coaching cycle. And he has also held to date 3 principal leadership coaching sessions working with our academic cohorts to ensure best first instruction. We've only been doing this work since the beginning of August with our teachers and have seen significant gains in student learning and engagement.
Good evening. In addition, with the support that Mr. Soto has provided to our instructional coaches In the area of systematic explicit instruction, our coaches have completed 252 demo lessons utilizing the gradual release stages of instruction. Also, based on our walkthrough observations, 99.75% of our CVUSD classrooms have evidence of learning intentions and success criteria posted for use during instruction.
In conclusion, over 500 recorded classroom walkthroughs have happened. These administrative classroom walkthroughs provide school leaders insight into instructional practices and classroom dynamics. By identifying strengths and areas of improvement, walkthroughs can positively impact student learning and guide targeted professional development to address specific instructional needs. Additionally, walkthrough data helps school leaders make PD decisions that support teachers in enhancing student engagement, differentiation, and rigor, as well as provide feedback on teacher clarity. Overall, these visits support a culture of continuous improvement in teaching and learning. Thank you.
Next up, Mary Meyer, item 12.7.
Mary Meyer, elementary member at large, speaking on behalf of CVTA. You already know how CVTA feels about Gary Soto's current contract for 500, what? I'm sorry. On the agenda, it's $277,500. On the agenda tonight is a second-year contract for his service of $234,500. Do you have specific data to show that his services are resulting in improved learning for students? You are a board who always wants data to show results for the money spent, but only 2.5 months or so into this school year, they already want you to approve a second-year contract? That is both questionable and suspicious. In the past, CVTA has shared concerns about his website and the professional consulting he does. As of today, there has been no improvement in the website, nothing there to show how previous work success, true testimonials, nothing. In case people want to say that CVTA is just attacking Mr. Soto, we are not. It is true that he has helped create a plan that will guide PD for years to come, and that's a great thing. It's important for everyone to be on the same page and to expect great, consistent instructional practices. But was that worth nearly $300,000? Maybe we don't really know yet because our teachers are just barely getting instructions from their coaches. There's no evidence that this is either working or not working. There's no evidence that it's worth another $234,000 for next year. Maybe, maybe not. We believe this is a premature request and would ask that you to hold off for a while to truly see if it's necessary. Perhaps we already have the staff who can continue this work at no extra cost. Perhaps next year will be the time for us, for a gradual release, for us to do the work ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Maribel Hernandez, item 11.1. Quick question, you sent in two of them for the same item, it's just one, correct?
No, it's both.
No. You're speaking on the same item twice?
Yes, but one is on behalf of CVTA and the other one
You get
is
3
on...
minutes on each item.
Say that again?
You get 3 minutes on each item.
Thank
That's why I
you.
was asking if I made a mistake and was reading
No,
this. Right.
it's correct. Okay, good evening, Cabinet and board members. My name is Maribel Hernandez, and today I stand before you to express my concern as a voter for the CVUSD school board elections. For the past 9 days, I feel like my vote and my voice has been suppressed and silenced by you withholding the results of the school board elections and by waiting on you to make the right decision. You know you have the ability to fix this right now, but it feels like there are some alternative motives to prolong the results of the school board election. I ask that you please do the right thing by the voters and to do it with transparency and integrity. Do I continue with the second one? Okay.
Yeah.
So the second one, I'm speaking on behalf of CVTA on item 11.1. After the
special board meeting closed session last week, you reported that no actions were taken by the board. President Joy Acuña later reported that the action had been taken related to the school board election and the Imperial County ballots. If no action took place in closed session, can you explain to the staff and your constituents how it came to be that legal action was taken related to the elections? Again, transparency is critical. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Jeff Kruger, CVTA, items 6.1 and 12.5. You have 6 minutes.
Good evening, Jeff Kruger. I'm speaking on behalf of CVTA. I'm CVTA Vice President. For open session item 6.1, the first interim report. This is a report that normally comes from the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, but is apparently going to be presented by RCOE. At 12:30 p.m. today, we checked online and there was still no attachment of any presentation. Again, we must point out the lack of transparency. Why is there no attachment? Why is RCOE here presenting to the board instead of the Assistant Superintendent? You approved the hiring of consultant Debbie Deal to help work in this department, and now RCOE is here doing the same. We ask that you share with staff and the community why these supports are necessary and to quit canceling the budget committee meetings. Transparency is critical. 12.5, purchases from various vendors. While we understand the need to purchase items for the reasons listed here, we must question why those vendors are not included as part of the agenda. If you recall, it was of great concern to several board members that all anticipated purchases be listed for the items B. Gonzalez had planned for the after-school program. We believe that same concern should apply here with this item. It is extremely unusual for any department to ask for approval to purchase items without showing the board and the public from whom they plan to purchase the items. We would like to see full disclosure as is expected from everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, we'll move on to student board member reports.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Isabela Jimenez, and I'm the new student trustee for West Shores High School, and I'll be giving the report today. For Coachella Valley High School, we have that students have been having an issue with what they are seeing with security on campus. But we are going to address these issues with our security on campus and try to fix the problem with our staff before we go higher up. We did get the support of the head of security and get our questions answered. Now it's about informing students. Buses were an issue. We talked about it at the last meeting, but we got great news about new buses and what CV can look forward to, so good news for CV. For Desert Mirage High School, we have that counseling team's 9th grade presentations. The counseling team helped 9th grade understand A through G requirements and created their 4-year plans. Puente students made our work to honor and remember loved ones who passed away. Avid students went on their first field trip, going to college tours to learn about college life and get ready for their futures. Migrant families took part in the family math night, making fun math and encouraging students to do well in the subject. The volleyball team placed second in the Sun Valley League and made it to the playoffs. For La Familia High School, we have a new quarter has started. This means classes were changed in each student's schedule. La Familia's counselor updated students' transcripts to reflect quarter 1 final grades. Some of the students had the opportunity to graduate early and leave this quarter by having all their graduation requirements completed. Academic awards took place on November 1st, in which each teacher picked 3 students that showed the most dedication and hard work. Basketball season has started this month having its first 2 games played against other continuation high schools. The boys and girls basketball team played against EWEC on November 4th. Girls lost 5-1, boys won 25-24. Friday's game on November 8th was a defeat for the boys, scoring 18 against Summit with 58 points. The boys' team had only a game against other school. Many students have shown their worry regarding the school buses. There's been a lot of late buses showing up to school. After the new change of direct routes to La Familia, we are still experiencing inconveniences with the buses taking students to CV and causing them to show up late or called to get picked up by someone else to arrive at school. As previously talked about the parking lot, I discussed with some teachers and hear their opinion. I finally realized the major concern of the overcrowding in parking lots. We have a lot of cars that won't go to the available spaces in the other sides of the school. This causes some cars to be parked in the middle or in a non-parking space. Trucks or other vehicles that come in the middle of the day don't have where to park. Finally, for West Shores High School, gradual release has been implemented, and as a student participating in it firsthand, I find it to be very benefiting. Teachers are getting ongoing support on implementation to make sure that this tool is used campus-wide. We are having our parent-teacher conference today and tomorrow to meet with parents regarding their students' grades. WASC chair visited with staff and students to conduct the pre-visit. On November 4th, seniors went to La Sierra University for criminal justice. On November 12th, Avid students got the opportunity to go to UCI and Cal State Long Beach. Avid has recently attended their first college field trip visiting UCI as well as Cal State Long Beach. We had our annual Dia de los Muertos festival on November 1st, where we had record attendance. Spanish classes showcased beautiful ofrendas, art classes displayed stunning artwork, and we had performances by band, cheer squad, and a folklorico group that added to the festive atmosphere. Every class and club sets up booths offering delicious food and fun games for kids. All classes are enthusiastically fundraising for the different class level initiatives. Our volleyball team reached the quarterfinals, crowned league champions, and went undefeated in league play. Incredible turnaround from last season, improving from only 2 wins to 13 wins this year. Football had a record turnout with 28 players joining the team. Winter sports season kicks off this week with tryouts for soccer and basketball. Students are frustrated and ask constantly when Saturday school will start. Students would like to have access to more CTE programs on campus as well as more electives. They would like to see more workshops like welding or woodwork. The difficult part is the space on our campus and the lack of teachers. Lastly, students have missed special events due to late buses, and as mentioned in one of our last meetings, students still complain about having to sit 3 a seat most of the week. They've gone as far as to say that the buses have gone so packed, kids have to sit on the aisle floors or stand up. This is more commonly heard for kids who take the Desert Shores bus as well as North. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for the student trustee? Nope. Okay, moving on. Board member reports. Board member Garcia.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who has addressed us. I don't think you should ever be afraid, and I'm sorry that you are, to talk to us. We always want to hear from anyone within our district how things are going, so thank you for being courageous. I also noted that there wasn't a presentation attached, so I would want to make sure, Dr. Esparza, that that is attached to our agenda on the back end, since it's something that's going to be presented. Yes. So as long as it's something that can be added on the back end, which I'm sure it can. What we're going to hear and what we've had some issues with is that we're going to be in some precarious fiscal situations. I commit to, and I urge other board members to meet until we have a sound plan. We have a very close margins for getting this very important work done that we need to. There's no other way. We need to meet until it's done, however many special sessions that needs to be, because this is too important. This impacts our students so specifically. A budget report always does, but if we are having to change programming, that's disheartening, and we need to make sure that we are clear on what a plan is. I wish I understood a plan for the elections for our disenfranchised voters. It is public knowledge that there are court dates that are going to happen where a plan will be presented to a judge and they're going to weigh in on that. But I am not sure how that plan is going to be determined as far as it being on CVUSD's behalf. I would like more information from our consul about that because I'm unclear how they're speaking for us at this point. And that's the end of my report.
Board Member Arredondo.
Good evening, and thank you, everybody, for coming here today and being part of this process. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate them and know that we always value when we have public comment and we get to hear, the things that are happening. As you heard, my colleague, Ms. Garcia, Trustee Garcia, did say that we are, looking at some difficult times ahead, but I commit as a board member to make sure that we look in the best interest of our students and then we make a sound plan moving forward. I'd like to just give a shout out to the dance team at both Desert Mirage and Coachella Valley High School, as I got to attend the East Valley Dance Project performance at the McCollum Theater. And my understanding that this collaboration has been going on for the past 18 years. And so thank you to our Assets program and our ELOP program dance teams that were part of this. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you to the staff in the after-school program that made this happen. I also got to attend the CVU Fall Festival, and I just want to thank all the teachers that stayed, even though, it was a 3-day weekend, but the staff that was there, the families were present. I mean, they had beautiful fall festival. So thank you to all the staff that stayed and was part of that for the community out there in Seaview. And I got to tour the campus a little bit and just ask questions. But thank you to our principal out there as well for being out there. And I'd just like to thank our schools that participated in Dia de los Muertos events. I did not get a chance to go there, but definitely know that your efforts and your work with the students to make sure to, build the altares, the altars. Thank you to all the teachers and everybody who helps our students every year make sure that this happens. The last thing is that, I just like to, once again, it's important that we get clear and transparent answers to everybody, and that is our goal as a board, and that we move forward collectively in making sure that we do everything in the best interest of our students. So we'll continue to do that, and I commit as a board member to continue to bring the information, and I'm sure that we'll hear from our superintendent as well. So thank you.
Board Member Gonzalez.
North Shore School is 60% complete and on budget. We have the complete reconstruction of 5 school sites, a very substantial construction project awaiting the final phase of it, which is the sod grass that should be delivered, I think, starting on the 15th. And then recently at West Shore School, we have a new scoreboard. Palm View is about 99% complete. It's a wonderful school that's going to be open. The campus in the back will be open to the community. It's lighted where community can access and use it for exercise, for work. So excited about that. Also working with the Catholic Church at the old Catholic Church site. Had a couple meetings with the Catholic Church to reference some of the issues and shortfalls that we have at Valley View, where that entire street in front of the school gets pretty impacted. And so we're working at developing a drop-off site that actually is going to be in the parking lot of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is concerned about the well-being of the kids, and they have actually reached out to us to allow us to build something there, to work in collaboration with them. We also brought on the city of Coachella through the leadership of Mayor Hernandez, and they also are committing financially to the project. So it's in a very early state, but I know facilities is working diligently to try to address this issue at Valley View School. Today we have RCOE here. We had an opportunity to talk to them a little bit in closed session. We do have financial challenges here at CVUSD, and they're substantial. I want to make it very clear that it was in January of 2023 when I started asking about our financial condition, about the lack of an ESSER plan, about the performance or the hiding of test scores where our children weren't doing well in the testing, where our then superintendent was purposely holding the results of the test scores from this board. The decline in enrollment, which is a real issue and also has a lot to do with how we receive money. The graduation rate, the declining graduation rate. I'm excited that Ms. Garcia and Mr. Arredondo are now going to work diligently to try to address this issue. But this is an old issue, and that's why our prior superintendent is no longer here. This is something that has been a concern of mine for a long time, the lack of transparency, the lack of telling our community that our school district isn't doing well. And so under the leadership of Dr. Esparza and through the engagement of RCOE, we do have a plan. We're working on a plan. It's all new to us as it is to you. So I'm asking you to understand that we are working to try to solve this issue. The final thing that I want to talk about is the mistake that the County of Imperial made as it relates to these elections. We as a school district have no control as to how elections are run. It's Riverside County election people, it's Imperial County election people. Somehow, the candidates from this part of the desert were left off the ballots of those people that live in Imperial, roughly about 2,500 voters. And so because they were left off, the County of Imperial is going to have a special election. We don't know when. We don't dictate when. We're not paying for the election. They're paying for it. And at that time, when we find out the results of those votes that are going to come in, they're going to combine them with Riverside County. They're going to tally the vote, and whoever wins, wins. And so I just want to make it very clear that this board or this school district has nothing to do with how elections are managed, right? And that's on Imperial County. If you have a concern, you can call the Imperial County election people. Those are the people that are going to answer those issues. That's all I have today. Thank you, President Acuna.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and again, thank you for being here and providing public comment. I do want to address my colleagues here on the dais about the use of the word transparency, which is often thrown out there, overused and misused and I think it's our responsibility. I mean, this is our district, we live here, and it's our image. Everybody here, collectively, we make decisions. So in the area of the county being here, at least to us here on the dais, it should not be news that they are engaged. There's been letters sent in, those letters are public, at various points flagging different concerns, right, about our interim reports, about questions unanswered. And so it's not the first time that we've seen the county come and address us on issues. So it is not news to anybody here that this district was having challenges on fiscal management, and that we need the help from the county, and that those plans, as Ms. Valerie mentioned, right, that those plans need to be in place and need to be reviewed. But again, there's no lack of transparency, I don't think, because this, I mean, it's been, we don't talk about it every time probably, but it's been a series of meetings in the past. On item 11.1, there was no action taken in closed session. There was a statement read, and beyond that, I mean, and by no action, we didn't vote on anything, right? Like, there was no item presented to us where we needed to vote and take an action on anything. That was the first time we were informed, actually, of what had happened with the elections, at what potential path this could take. And that was it. We didn't have any other information, and it was a few days before the election. So, and so I just wanted to mention that on item 12.5, let me see. On item 12.5, it is correct. I think I've been the only one who's voted no on some of the items because of lacking of information. The rest of my board has approved those items, right? And it hasn't been, at least for me, a question of who the vendors are. It's been a question of whether we are spending on the right things and what we're spending on. And so while it's not a vendor issue on 12.5 that I have a problem with, we just have general school supplies, right? I don't know what that means. I don't know what's informing the types of supplies that are needed. Uniforms, I guess it's sort of self-explanatory, uniforms, but I don't know if it's that school uniforms or sports uniforms. So I do concur with the public comment made around making sure that we are provided with information and that we're not just spending money because we have a last-minute grant or check mark that we need to be checking off, but that we're being very intentional about putting our money where our money is going to have the best impact. And I will speak on item 12.7 when that comes up.
Good evening, everybody. First off, thank you to all the public comments that were shared tonight. I also appreciate, hearing from everyone, the concerns. With 12.5, I do agree with my colleague and the comment that was made, right? Let's be consistent, not just, selective programs. But if we're going to ask and do that with one program, I think it's important to do that across the board. So I do appreciate also having that information provided. Couple things, I attended a number of community events, Dia de los Muertos out in West Shores. We got to see students in community events, so I do want to share that, the good things about the district. Moving on to the challenges, right? What Trustee Paz is sharing, right? I don't think it's a surprise that this is where we are. We did have to do layoffs, last school year, and so, I think for me, layoffs of any staff is not an easy decision, right? It's a hard conversation, and we don't take those decisions, at least for me, I don't take those decisions lightly. But I think we should have known, right? Like we knew this was coming. These conversations are hard. As board members, we're tasked with making those hard decisions for our district to ensure that we are fiscally solvent, right? I think the coming months are going to be a challenge, right? As a board, we're the ultimate decision, right? In terms of what we'll be doing in terms of our budget, but I think across our entire district, we all have a responsibility and a role to play in ensuring that we're, being fiscally responsible with our funds. So I appreciate my colleagues, challenging all of us, right, up here on the dais to be committed to this process, to be part of those conversations. And we are going to have to make hard decisions. And so, I I appreciate that being, spoken and said. I'm also committed to doing that. The last thing I'll say about, the comment around elections, I'm like, what do I say? It's hard. I mean, as a candidate myself, right, I think that's what makes it a little bit hard of a conversation, right? It was already said earlier, I don't know that as a board we have authority to decide, release or not release right at this point. I mean, we're not the authority to hold an election, right? So I think that's kind of at the forefront of my mind. I think as a representative of our community, right, when I realized that, 2,400 residents within our district were not going to have the ability to make decisions of who's going to represent them. I mean, that's just, I don't know how it came about, right? I do urge our community members, I mean, the concerns that were brought today at the public comment, I mean, I think those are valid concerns, they're important. And I do urge the public to go and reach out to Imperial County Registrar of Voters to ask those questions, right? To ask what happened. From my understanding, there's, possibly going to be an investigation because we don't want that to happen in future elections, right? We want to make sure that voters have the ability and right to exercise, their right to vote and select who's going to represent them. So I actually pulled out the phone number. I could, share it. It's 442-265-1060. So I think the county registrar is Lindsay Vale. So yeah, please, community, if you have a concern, you want answers, I urge the community to go and ask for those answers. As a candidate, I've also been kind of paying attention, right? And so we'll see what happens. I'm hoping it soon gets resolved, but yeah, thank you.
Well, I don't need to cover everything that my colleagues have already covered. Elections are the county of Imperial. Their mistake. They need to fix it. They're the ones that are calling for the election. Board Member Garcia, I have nothing to do with that. I can't call or did not do anything with them. Our attorneys are there representing us, but they have no power to call for elections or anything else. And it was the county, Imperial County, who asked the judge to hold the vote for Riverside County. That was not us. We do not have the power to go demand the county of Riverside release that information. It's not in our purview. Imperial County and Riverside did it with a special intention because of election law. So again, as my colleague has said, I would refer all those comments or all those concerns to Imperial County registrars of voters. We submitted the paperwork that we've been submitting for the past 12 years at a minimum and probably 20 years at that, the same way every year. And our names have always come out. This year they didn't. So again, those concerns, I would refer everything back to Imperial County Registrar of Voters. Secondly, the county is here and you're going to find out. And again, if you have been paying attention, we knew that we were having some of these difficulties last year with our budget. The board, or 4 members of the board, at the time I believe 4 or 5 members of the board voted to make those difficult cuts and those decisions to put us on track. Unfortunately, what we told the county we were going to do was not what some of our staff actually did, and that's a problem. That's a problem that we voted on something that was not implemented the way it should have been implemented. So now the problem has increased. And again, there is no lack of transparency. The county has been coming, has been working with us. You all know that. Our board members know that. They've been in the rooms. They've been in closed session. We can't talk about closed session, obviously, but it's not something that just happened. And again, there's going to be difficult decisions to be made again. And you need to prepare for them because they're not going to be nice. They're not going to be easy. They're going to be difficult. The county will explain where we're at, where they feel they're at, and what we need to do, or the direction we need to do. But ultimately, this board, all of us, need to vote for these things or not vote for these things. Either be responsible or be irresponsible. We're going to have a choice in that. So we'll be hearing that. Again, to your point of, I believe it was, what, 12.5? The board wanted it all done the same way. I agree with you. I have no problem with what you said. In the past, it's been very targeted, in my opinion, at a very certain department. But obviously, no other board member mentioned this, and it was there. So maybe they weren't looking at this particular one. But again, I think Board Member Mas is correct. They all have to be treated the same. We've been saying that. I didn't care which way they did it as long as they did it the same. So I do agree with that. Other than that, not a whole lot. Thank you all for being here. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to everyone in the audience and everyone who's online watching with us. I want to thank Ms. Mejorado for putting on an amazing Dia de los Muertos at West Shores. It was my first time attending the event there, and I really appreciate that you included CVU in the making of the altars and carrying on that tradition by them walking the altar all the way to the school site. And so I truly appreciate that you're keeping culture and tradition alive in the West Shore Seaview area. Thank you. I'd like to thank the city of Coachella for, again, the Coachella promise that was provided to us over this summer and allowing 117 students from our high school in Coachella and at LAFA to participate in an internship. Several of our students were high school students that were seniors getting ready to go to college, so they had already graduated by the time they were in the program, and they are still keeping in touch with us, and they all received a $3,000 check for their 6 weeks of interning here in the district office and in businesses throughout Coachella. They invited us to the city yesterday to give the results of, the work that was done and the professional development that the students received here in this room every Friday. And one of them was on financial literacy. And so the kids really took to it because we had a young, vibrant, very, very excellent realtor by the name of Alan Sorrell, who came and showed them and talked to them about investing and about what to do with their money, their $3,000 that they were going to make. And so some of them are actually now working for Mr. Sorrell in Palm Desert for Keller Williams. And so we're really happy that we were able to connect with him and bring that. We're also going to be bringing Quantum Leap, which is a program that is going to be used with our high school students who are interested in learning more about financial literacy, aside from what they do at school, having that opportunity to really learn how to plan for their future. So I want to thank Alan Sorrell for that, and again, the City of Coachella. The City of Coachella has offered to take this project on again. We are not sure how much money we will receive this time. We received $500,000 for this event to be able to pay the students the $3,000, put on the workshops, and make sure that we were able to buy them uniforms as well. And a lot was put into it, and we fed them at every professional development and made them feel like a real, true professional. And they became those professionals. For those that wanted to get a job, they came to us and wanted to write resumes and get out there into the world and start putting themselves out, not just throughout Coachella, but throughout in the areas that they were going to college as well. And so I do want to thank the city for giving us that opportunity with that monies. This year, we're going to have a turkey giveaway for our migrant families. Our COE superintendent is graciously offering 600 turkeys to us, and we'll be giving those out, as well as with Aziz Farms and other farmers who are coming together to provide fruits and vegetables. This is going to take place here on November 18th. It's going to start at 5 o'clock in the evening, and our COE will be here helping us to pass those out to our targeted families, our migrant families. And so we're really thankful to the RCOE superintendent for, again, graciously offering those 600 turkeys to us. I want to identify that Coachella Valley High School will be working on safe passages. We brought this up before about making sure we have safe routes to school. And so the administration is working with the county and working with our local police department, and that should be taking place this month as well as into December. There'll be meetings and walks walks and actually visits to routes where we know that there has been difficulty with safety in those areas. So we're really thankful that Coachella Valley High School is taking this on. I also want to thank the Varieties Children Club, who's offered CVUSD fourth grade students throughout the district brand new bicycles. So 85 of our students are going to get brand new bicycles, helmets, locks for their bikes, swag bags, and ice skating passes for this upcoming ice skating season at Acrisure. And so we're really thankful to the Variety Club for those gifts for our students. We are happy to announce that the Transportation Department has updated their routes, and they're going to have bidding this weekend. And so we want to make sure that our students are picked up on time, that they're dropped off on time in order, like in the morning, to get breakfast, and that they also are picked up at the end of the day to make sure they get home on time to do their homework. And so we want to make sure that we give recognition to them. They've been working on this for the past few weeks. Bidding takes place on Saturday at 7 a.m. in the Transportation Department. If you'd like to visit, you are welcome. I will be there with them as well, as I want to see this for the first time to be able to go through with such a large department of over 100 drivers bidding on routes. I want to recognize Natalie Van Winkle, a ninth grader from West Shores, who scored in the 90th percentile on STAR testing. Thank you, Natalie, for being that excellent role model for all of our students in Coachella Valley Unified School District. A board trustee meeting with students and with extended cabinet. And so student trustees were able to meet with me, and if you see all the directors in the district, we come together once a week for an extended cabinet and go down the line on what we are doing, what we need to do, how can we connect with each other, how do we communicate with each other to make sure that everything is done and we're all helping each other. And we invited our student trustees to this week's meeting. And so they were with us, and they were able to tell us everything that you heard tonight and more. Directors were able to talk to them and tell them, you know, we're going to fix this, we're going to work on this, we'll be meeting, and they've been making appointments with the student trustees to walk schools as well to ensure that we are hearing our students, that their voice is heard, it's loud, and we know it, and we want to make sure that we visit the schools and not just, you know, talk about how we're going to fix things, but that the directors are on site helping them with security, helping them with transportation, helping them with whatever, with food services and things of that nature. So, and as all the board members have mentioned, you know, it's going to be a difficult time. So inheriting a budget that has not been consistent or stable for the past few years is difficult. But we're going to do everything possible to make sure that our students get the education that they deserve, and that we continue to work hard to plan to create that fiscal stability in our district. And I can commit myself to make sure that that happens. Like Board President Acuna stated, it's not going to be easy. There's going to be, you know, rough patches and hard conversations that we're going to have. And not everybody is going to be happy, but we're going to do our best to make sure that our students, again, receive the education that they deserve. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And moving on, item 6, information, the aforementioned budget stuff. 6.1, presentation by Dr. Scott Price from Riverside County Office of Education.
There we go. Thank you. President Acuna, members of the board, President Esparza, it's a pleasure to be here before you tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you tonight on this important topic and stressing the importance of the first interim coming up and giving some of the context around that. I, of course, won't be giving the first interim report tonight. That comes in December, and the district will be doing that report. But I want to give some context around the first interim report and why it's so important at this time. The purpose of the presentation tonight is to talk about the current fiscal situation here in the district and to talk about the timelines that are before us for achieving fiscal stability. Also, I want to mention the implications of corrective actions, and if those corrective actions are not taken, and I'll review some of the insights that we've received working with the CVUSD team here, and talk about a third-party projection that we had asked to be made. And then I'll also talk about some of the insights that we've received as we've gone through the process. But first, I want to talk about the budget cycle. And I know that the board is very familiar with the budget cycle, but for those in the audience who may not be as familiar with the budget, there are main points throughout the year where the budget is checked and where we're able to comment on each of the district budgets. We received your 2024-25 district budget in June. Your first interim budget comes to us in December, as we just mentioned. There's a second interim report that comes in March. And then, believe it or not, it seems like it is a long ways away, but it'll come upon us so quickly. There's the 2025-26 adopted budget that'll be here in June, just soon again in 7 months. So the time is passing very quickly in regards to this. Budgets require a 3-year projection. The first is what will happen in the current year. So the 24-25 budget that was passed here, and all school districts have to do that, has the 24-25 year, and then 2 additional years to that budget, 25-26 and 26-27. The reason that budgets are that way is so you can see the trend of spending and revenue over those 3 years, so that you can see what's in front of you and make required adjustments as those years pass. As I mentioned, in just 7 months, you'll have your 2025-26 budget coming before you, and you'll be adding the 2027-28 year. It does sound so far away, but it is coming. So the state, and you'll hear us talk about at the county level and at the district level, you hear us talking about AB 1200 that was passed in 1991. And what that did is it gave county offices the oversight responsibility to ensure that districts maintain fiscal stability by asking budgets to districts to prepare balanced budgets. It mandates the multi-year financial projections, that 3-year projection that I told you about, and imposes some fiscal health criteria that we'll talk about tonight. The county superintendent, as part of that, reviews all school district budgets in the county, and you approve them at the district level, and then we approve them at the county level after reviewing those. If there are some specific issues with the budget, we provide some intervention support. And we've been here in the district the last few months and before that to help and assist where possible. There is the oversight of financial reports, which are those interim reports that I talked about, in addition to the budget, unaudited actuals, which happens in September, and the certification of a financial status, which we'll talk about in just a minute. I've listed all the education codes here that go along with it. And as I mentioned to most people, if you ever need to sleep, you're welcome to dip into those. And they're very detailed, and but all of the detail is there about the job that we must perform as the county office and the responsibilities of the district in the county regarding your budget. So There are 3 different certifications that happen with interim budgets. But before I talk about the certifications, when you pass a budget, you pass the budget that's before you, and then you send that information on to the county. With the budget itself, we either approve or disapprove the budget. There's no certification. The certification comes later on with the interim report. So it's either approval or denial, and then we move on and wait for the interim reports. And if we interact with the district or have to interact with the district, we go through that process over the ensuing months. When we get to the interim reports, there is a certification, and there are 3 certifications possible. The slide here talks about qualified, but before qualified, there's what's called a positive certification. And a positive certification, the district makes the certification if they know that they can meet their financial responsibilities in all 3 years of the budget and come out with a balanced budget, meeting the necessary reserves required by the state. A qualified budget means that the district has the financial wherewithal to meet its responsibilities in the current year and either the second and third years. So there's the next 2 fiscal years, but they may not meet that. And so that's a qualified. So if there are difficulties in the third or second year, it's a qualified budget. And if districts go ahead and self-certify, we either approve that certification, but if we don't approve the certification or don't agree with that, the county office has the ability to change that certification. The third type of certification is a negative certification, and that means that the district is unable to meet its financial obligations for the current or the subsequent year, meaning that there are problems either in the current budget year or the next following year. And there are criteria that go along with that. A lot of those, there are assignment of a fiscal expert, and here with a negative certification, there can be the assignment of a fiscal advisor, and we'll talk more about that later on tonight. If the interim reports in the budget are not successful and the district runs out of dollars or cash, then a state loan is required. And the state loan process is an arduous process. It has to go through legislation. There are severe consequences when that happens. It's loss of local control. If a district runs out of money and needs a state loan, superintendent is fired. The district's governing board loses authority and becomes an advisory board, and a state-appointed administrator acts as superintendent and board in the district, and the board is an advisory board. If you borrow money from the state, a district borrows money from the state, that money must be paid back. And there's a small interest charge that comes with it, so it's not the state giving money to a district and then saying, oh, we forgive you, it looks like things are straightened out now. That money has to be repaid back over the years. Here's once again are the related education codes that go along with that. So we've been working with the district for quite some time. We've been receiving your interim reports, your budget, and we have correspondence during those times. Also, when you reach an agreement with your bargaining units, your employee bargaining units, that agreement has to be sent to the county office, and we review the terms of those agreements and how they affect your budget. With those letters that we send back in regards to your employee agreements, we really can't say no to what you're doing there, but we can comment on the effects that it will have. And actually, you send us the information of how those will affect your budget in the current year and the subsequent years with the bargaining agreements. So there are letters that are public information that we send to you. With your first interim budget, we concurred in January 2024 that you had a positive first interim budget. Some of you have mentioned earlier today that the board had a plan to do reductions that would have happened beginning July 1 this year that were approved by the board. And so there was a plan approved by the board for reductions, and that plan did not occur the way that the board had approved it to occur. But at the time that we wrote the letter about your first interim in January, we did concur that it was positive because of the commitment by the board to make those reductions. January 18th, there was a bargaining agreement with CVTA. There were some issues with how that would affect the budget, but those were laid out in the letter. And we asked that the board present, because of those agreements, a stabilization plan to be submitted. Now, what's a stabilization plan? A stabilization plan is a detailed plan that talks about how you're going to pay for the agreement that was just made in this case, whether it's reductions, whether it's trying to generate additional revenue, whether it's making changes to programs, but we asked at that time for a financial stabilization plan. February 1st, your CSEA bargaining agreement, same parameters, asked for a financial stabilization plan to go with those the parameters that you set forth in the agreement. The district, because of some of the moves that had been made with the agreements and some of the issues brought up financially, went ahead and qualified, presented a certification of qualified in the second interim, and we concurred with that, meaning that there had to be some changes made in order to pay for those agreements and how that worked out. Second interim projections did not fully account for costs associated with previous bargaining agreements, so there were some details left out. And because there's a qualified second interim, we require a third interim report. We received the third interim report and also asked for a stabilization plan. The third interim had not changed much from the second interim. Here we provided some feedback on the third interim submission. Stabilization plan was not submitted until June, but there were pieces of that it wasn't very clear, it wasn't detailed, and we needed more information. We asked also for a comprehensive review at that time of the budget and LCAP. We get down to the budget of this year. You approved a budget. We started reviewing the budget and wrote you about the budget. In the letter, we asked many different questions about some portions of the budget and asked for a fiscal stabilization plan. But let's talk about, so this is one part of our letter, actually, and in your budget, you approved a budget, and we looked at the budget. There were significant reductions in the budget in order to get you to an approved budget. We took the budget that you had sent us at face value, and we approved the budget, but started communicating heavily with the district, both formally and informally, about the reductions that would be needed to give you the approved budget. And so I'm going to show you that approved budget with just a few lines here. This is the amount of cash or amount of reserves that you have according to the budget that you have given us. So right now, there are 4 lines here that I'm going to explain. The first one is that red line that goes across, and that is the line where you run out of your reserves or savings. That's 0 amount of savings. So the budget that you gave us is a 3-year budget. So in 2024-25, you said you would end the year with $44 million in reserves, $44 million in the bank. The top blue line is the budget line you gave us, which shows that you have a budget, you have $44 million in reserve, and that in 2025, you would have $30 million in reserve, and in 2026-27, you would have $15 million in reserve, which would get you to your 3% required reserve. In that budget, it showed 40, and it's a coincidence that it's 44 million here in reserves. That budget showed that by the 25-26 school year, that the district would make $42 million worth of reductions in personnel, and that includes benefits, and $2 million in the materials budget, a total of $44 million worth of reductions. And actually, we took that budget and we backed out all of those reductions, and that is what gives you the orange line that slopes from the top left of the screen to the right of the screen. And so if you do not do the reductions that were in the budget, you will have a deficit and possibly run out of cash in 2025-26 if the reductions are not made that were outlined in the budget. Now, those reductions that were outlined in the budget were what we called unspecified reductions. They were blocks of dollars. They were not specific reductions of any sort. So in different areas of the budget, there were blocks. And what we did was immediately start asking the district, can you explain this to us? Can you explain where you're going with that? And as we started working with the district, we found that, and this happened with many districts, with one-time dollars, COVID dollars coming in and out, many districts had put personnel expenses, which are ongoing expenses, into one-time funds. It's hard to identify where personnel are paid from many times, so we started working with the district to make sure that we could identify the different dollars, groups of dollars, and the expenses, and make sure they align. So we've been working with the district in that aspect. Dr. Esparza has asked us, welcomed us to come in and work with the group here, and we've appreciated the cooperation as we've gone through the board and the district staff as we've tried to verify all these sums. But because of the amount of reductions that are in the budget listed here, we did something that we usually don't do, and that is we went out and asked a third party to come in and look at the budget also, so that we could have a third party objective comparison. And they gave us a budget line that is the green line there, which is, this is what will happen to the budget if no reductions were made, and or if they are not made. So you can see that that line aligns with the original budget you gave us. And so both of those buttress each other to say, if reductions aren't made, you will have the possibility of running out of cash mid-2025-26 and requiring a state loan. So it was Ide Bailey who was the third party who came in and did the projections, a special group of Ide Bailey, and they looked through the budget, and once again, they took the actuals, they took all of the employees, all the costs that had occurred, and they went back 3 years, followed those expenses all the way through 3 years, and then took all of the actual expenditures up to this time and employees all the way up to October, and they just went ahead and gave us this independent analysis. Last week is when they finished because of the amount of data that they crunched. So reductions follow a very specific timeline set by state law. And there are two notice timelines that have to be met in order to reduce personnel. The first is that personnel must be notified by March 15th that there may be the possibility will be laid off or that their job assignment may change in any way in regards to the number of hours or other types of changes that have financial implications. If that notice is not made by March 15th, the district cannot lay that individual off or make the reduction. There's a second notice that has to happen by May 15th when that layoff is finalized, and then the layoff occurs on June 30 for at the end of the school or fiscal year. So this is what we're up against right now, is that the district submission of the first interim report is due, the state timeline is the 15th of December. That's what's in code. Your board meeting to approve the first interim is on the 13th of December. The letters and the request by the district, the county office to the district has been for a detailed fiscal stabilization plan. The details, detailed meaning specific positions, specific reductions, or specific increases in revenue, if there are any possible. You may have some enrollment improvement that will address the reductions that were outlined in your original budget in 24-25. So at the first interim, we need to have a detailed fiscal stabilization plan with all of those details available, because in order to make the March 15th deadline for notification, if reductions are necessary, there's time needed by the HR department to go through, because there are complex, specific bumping rights and other type of requirements of seniority that must be met in order to properly notify and address employees that could face reduction. March 17th, there's a second interim report that will be due, and so in order to verify the March 17th second interim report and review that report, if the March 15th deadline or notification of layoffs has not occurred, then that will be taken into account with the second interim. So there are certain tools that the county office needs to use or is required to use, and we need, in order to meet our requirement, we have to make sure that we use the tools the state has given us to work with the district and help them get to where they need to get in order to stay fiscally responsible. So at this time, we will be sending a formal letter soon doing what we call a lack of going concern. And let me tell you exactly what that means. Lack of going concerns means that you're in danger of getting into a situation if the district does not reduce, as it said it was going to in the budget, and does not produce a detailed fiscal stabilization plan, that the March 15th deadline is met and that you might run out of cash and need a state loan. So here tonight, letting you know that that level has been reached of concern, where we have to go to lack of going concern. We're asking for that detailed fiscal stabilization plan to be given to us during the first interim as part of the first interim report. And we realize, and the reason why we're taking this step is because of the shortened time frame that we're in here and the March 15th deadline that looms out there and the requirements that are required for the layoff process. So implications for that is, once again, the financial production, and this is very interesting, the requirements you can see by code here. We direct the school district to submit a financial projection of all fund cash balances as of the district as of June 30th for the current and subsequent years. Really, that's just a budget. And that's what's required in those 3 years. That's so any of your budgets meets that requirement, but it has to be detailed, and the fiscal stabilization plan has to be specific. And also, that's the next bullet, direct the district to submit a proposal for addressing the fiscal conditions resulted in the determination. And so you have to give us a proposal. That's the fiscal stabilization plan. So this is the law. And so you need to give us a budget, and you need to give us a fiscal stabilization plan. And that's why this report is all around first interim, because that's the crux and the key to meet the timelines, to not put yourself in a fiscally precarious position by not meeting that. As part of that, we have to send you the official notice, which I said you'll be getting in a few days. So that notification gets sent to district superintendent, governing board, and it also goes to the state superintendent of public instruction as mandated by law. And after that notification, we have to make sure that that notification is passed along to the State Board of Education president, the employee organizations for that particular district, and parent organizations. And then the state superintendent monitors the efforts and assists, and gets FCMET involved also, so that FCMET can help at another level. Also, FCMET, for those of you unfamiliar with that, is the Fiscal Crisis Management Assessment Team, which is a state-level team that does what the county office does to a certain extent, but at the state level. Also, as part of that, there is an assignment of a fiscal advisor, which we will be doing as part of the formal notification. And the law says the fiscal advisor is to ensure the district doesn't commit any unaffordable expenditures. So what that means is a fiscal advisor will have staying power for the board, which means if you vote on something that is an expenditure and you approve it and it seems to be unaffordable with the situation that the district is in, that a fiscal advisor can stay that decision, meaning vacate that decision. So a yes vote by the board can be vacated or stayed by that fiscal advisor. And then the county will continue to be here. So once again, I just want to stress the importance of this first interim report that is coming up in December. I know that each of you board members earlier here in the session is each committed to making sure that this is done in the fiscal stabilization plan and the decisions necessary are made in order to keep the district fiscally solvent. I'm open for questions or comments and be glad to.
Yeah, any board members want to ask questions or make a comment?
Yes, if you can go back to the slide with the lines.
Yes.
That one. And I just want to put this in context and maybe ask for your support on how to best manage these conversations moving forward, right? So in the context of one of your letters, you had mentioned concerns over the agreements that we made with both of our unions. During the time when those conversations were happening, I recall that there was one narrative out there saying that our district had a lot of money, that there was an 8% COLA, that all that gave the reason or the rationale for the types of agreements or what types of agreements, right? And I don't sit at the negotiation tables and I cannot talk of closed session meetings, but overall, right, there was that type of narrative there. I think where somewhat our district failed is in providing a clear, believable narrative of the situation we were in and what it would mean for us to approve certain percentages, right? And as I can see on this graph, particularly the one provided by our district, our board made a decision based on whatever understanding of information we had at the time, and also later, it seems to me, we made the decision that we needed to make cost cuts, right? I mean, those agreements were going to cost us in other areas, and those cuts needed to happen. Unfortunately, as you said, they didn't happen. But I think the reason why I want to put this in context and ask you as like, what is the recommendation for us to move forward is because we negotiate every year. And it's very clear, and it seems to me, right, that the narrative has not been very clear around what the real impacts are to our decisions. Not that we should or we should not, but there are impacts. There's not a limited number of dollars, and this board needs to, you know, when we increase one side, we need to reduce, but somehow we missed that mark. So how do we prevent this?
So a couple things based on your question. So during the time of COVID, there were a few years where there were very large increases given to the districts. All districts received those same increases. So there were a few years there where districts were passing on those increases to their employees who worked through that difficult time, and they were appropriate and they worked out. That changed as the economy changed, and the state is who tells us and helps us in our projections and tells us what to project for COLAs in the future. COLA is the cost of living increases, or in other words, what percentage a district will receive later on. The state last year had proposed that there would be a 4% COLA for the coming year And instead of that 4% COLA at the last minute, they changed that COLA based on the revenue that they had coming into the state down to a 1.07% COLA. And so the timing of that happened in December, January, when a lot of districts were already negotiating. So this was hard for a lot of districts who got caught in a bind. And this was one of the districts that got caught in that particular bind there. And the increases actually were over that original 4% COLA that was projected, and much over what turned into a 1.07% COLA. The second thing I'd say is because of COVID dollars and one-time dollars, many districts had high reserves. And the reserves were misinterpreted by some districts, and I'm talking in general here, as ongoing money. And a reserve really is a one-time reserve. And if a district has a structural deficit, they're spending more than they're bringing in, districts have to realize that a reserve won't sustain them forever. So it's like a home budget. If you had $10,000 sitting in your account at home, but you're spending $1,000 more than you're bringing in each month, how long is it going to take you before you're out of money? Your money disappears. $1,000, your savings goes away $1,000 at each month, and you're left with nothing in 10 months in that simple example. And many districts with the high reserves that they had were pressured and when working with bargaining groups, saying, look at all those dollars that are sitting there, but they're different types of dollars. They're one-time dollars. And so the importance is looking for whether or not there's a structural deficit, meaning you're spending more on a regular basis than you're bringing in. And a lot of the one-time monies hid structural deficits in districts, and it's one of the things that we talked about with districts on a regular basis. So that's why when we reflected back in our letters specific agreements that were made, we wanted to reflect back that this will cause a deficit or an ongoing deficit, and that's why we asked for fiscal stabilization plans that would address that and could be addressed later on in smaller bites based on those. Is that helpful, or may I?
President Acuna, if I may. Yeah, that was very helpful. I think what I've noticed here since I've been on this board is, well, let me start by saying that of the 23 school districts in Riverside County, I believe we're the #1 paid. Our teachers make more money than every other school district in Riverside County. Let that be known, and the community needs to understand that. But the pattern that I've seen under the leadership of this union is that if we have an extra dollar, they ask for it. Give it to us. Give it to us. We're going to walk out. We're going to strike. Work to rule. And then we tell them, if we give it to you, we're going to have layoffs. And they don't care. And so what their political game is, if we have extra money, give it to us. If we don't give it to them, we're a bad board because we're not giving them more money. But then when we give it to them, we run out, like we've run out, and we're going to have layoffs. We're bad managers of money. And it's just a political ploy. And somehow we got to get beyond that and really start caring about the children in the school district, because right now this political game that's going on, it isn't good for our community. And I believe that our community is catching wind of it. And they're starting to understand that this is not good for our kids, and we're going to have to make some changes. And these hard decisions are going to be a reminder to this community that we have to do this, right? But ultimately, I think relationships between our unions and us, in where we're all in the same car, right? That if we lose together. If we win together. Until we get there, this political game that they play, that if we have extra money, they want it, and if we give it all to them and we run out, well, we're bad administrators. So we're bad either way. But again, that's an old tactic. I think people are catching wind of it. I appreciate the fact that you're here having this tough conversation. And as I've heard today, and I know that these kinds of decisions are hard because we're going to lay off people that depend on a livelihood. They depend on making their mortgage. They depend on paying their car, their kids' college. It's going to be a very difficult decision. But again, we need to do better. I believe we can do better. I'm looking forward to doing better.
I have a question and a comment. Thank you for all of this information. I hope the public is able to follow along with us. Question, and you have kind of touched on it a bit. Is it a great idea to have permanent positions attached to temporary money?
Definitely not, because that money runs out, and unless that is determined beforehand and planned beforehand, then you run out into a surprise later on. So one of the things that is said regularly amongst CBOs and school services, which is one of the premier organizations in the state, there was a gentleman named Ron Bennett, who was president of that organization for many years, that said, don't spend one-time money on things that eat. A way of saying, don't spend money on positions that require dollars year after year. And unless it's planned, unless there's a program that you're temporarily bringing in, you have one-time dollars to do it, people understand that that's going to be there 2 years and you're done. There was so much one-time money with COVID that came in, there was no way for any district to follow that rule anymore. In order to be able to use the money wisely in a way that would be impactful for children, districts put personnel in to provide extra services using one-time money. And so everyone broke the rule together in doing that. So that's not, Coachella isn't unusual in that. All school districts had to do that because they had to use the money as wisely as possible and provide extra services. The place where districts run into trouble is if they forget to ramp those dollars back down. So a lot of this reduction that's here is the one-time monies ending, and those dollars and the personnel that have been supported by those one-time dollars then get put into the regular general fund, so to speak, on the unrestricted side, and there's no way to pay for those without creating large deficits and structural deficit spending.
Thank you for that. So my comment with that in mind is that during COVID, just for context and transparency, during COVID, we, like so many districts across the state, did receive very large ESSER dollars. And we had ESSER dollars specifically for instructional coaches. Remember, this was a time where we knew that our students had been greatly impacted, learning loss because of synchronous and asynchronous lessons in our district. Unfortunately, we have students who don't have stable internet, so there are so many things that were against our students. My understanding is an interim superintendent thought it was a great idea because we had all this money for instructional coaches, and it was very difficult to find people to agree to an instructional coach position that was temporary. So they decided to allow for permanent contracts for people who were covering those positions. So unfortunately, an interim superintendent put us in a bind where we had all these positions and we knew that contracts should have been temporary, but they weren't. And that was even before Dr. Ellis was here. So that was a mess that she was not able to fix. So as far as that goes, that is what made the issue with our budget. We certainly could not keep all of those people, but it was not going to be easy to then shuffle all of them. These are now people who have bumping rights. So it completely changed the landscape of what could have happened. Even last year, it sounds like with our unspecified reductions, that sounds like no plan to me. And that's unfortunate because our timeline for all of these things should have happened in December, which was what my first meeting here. We were voting on something so important, and yet none of that happened the way it should have. I'm so grateful for you being here now and making sure that we're going to be on track this year. But that did not happen before, and it was years in the making.
I want to add, if I may. So I appreciate the comments, and what I want to take from this is that we need to vote and give direction to the staff, and I think that's where some board members have a difficult time, when they cannot agree on the layoffs. And sometimes it's, we can't agree on the layoffs because of the timing, everything's too rushed. We can't agree on the layoffs because the process is not perfect. But the fact that we needed to lay off was the fact that we needed to lay off in an imperfect scenario, which most of the time we have imperfect scenarios. And so I think it's really the message for us is that we need to make these decisions. And this is not new. I used to do a lot of advocacy on the LCAP before I was on this board. And I would meet with the staff and I would ask, like, why are we doing this on the LCAP? And the reality was that the board, and at the time it was another board, was not giving them direction on which positions to cut. So all they could do was shuffle them and put them in the LCAP and and that's been the history in my involvement with this district. So this board needs to be different, and we need to accept that it's not perfect and that it's not hard, but at the end what I'm hearing is we need some serious cuts. And we're probably not going to agree on the best process, I guarantee, because we all have a different mind, right? We're not going to agree on the best positions, but that does not excuse any one of us from not making those cuts.
Well, thank you, Dr. Price, for being here. I certainly, as a board member, just always, we take responsibility of what's in front of us, right? And today we take responsibility of what's in front of us and the best decision and the way forward, right? I sit here knowing and understanding that our district as a whole provides employment for many, many people. And we also not only negotiate with our unions, but we've also been very forthcoming with our staff and making sure that everyone in our district is well paid. So I do want to put that out there. It's that everyone at CVUSD, we look at ways to support, right? And now comes the question of, do we have the right financial team, right? We need a team to make sure and guide us and help us. And I thank the county for their support moving forward. And I know that we can get together, come to an agreement on what we need to cut to make sure, that our students are well educated. So I know that we can make that happen. I'm not going to sit here and, this is a big task, but I know that we can make it happen. So thank you, Dr. Bright.
Yeah, just to comment, first of all, thank you so much for your work, the work of your team. I know there's been a number of people kind of working on this, and so I think being able to see this, it's a little bit more clearer on what it is that we're tasked with. I completely agree with what's being said by my colleagues. I think one thing that kind of stands out to me, and I think it's important to note and for all of us to acknowledge and kind of stick to, right? You mentioned that stabilization plan. We've made decisions as a board on next steps, and there's been a number of times where that follow through hasn't happened, right? We talk a lot about accountability, So I think it's important that, as the next steps, as we're making those commitments and challenging decisions, we really need to stick to that plan. If there's a directive being made by the board, we need to make sure that we're following through, and this goes across our entire staff, right? I mentioned earlier, we all have a role and responsibility, right? I think we all need to have that understanding. This is what we're dealing with, right? And so regardless of where conversations are happening within our district, I think this is what we need to ensure that everyone understands. And so when we are making asks, when we are being critical of the decisions that we're making, this is what it is, right? And so I think we need to, acknowledge that and address it and work to fix it.
So, a couple of things. First of all, you're absolutely wrong. That was the association's narrative, that what was happening all before. It was not. The early people who were into this program were told that it was a temporary program. Sometime during that administration, and I'm not going to say it was Dr. Alice because I don't know who gave that directive to her, they changed it. They did not tell the board that they changed it, but they changed it during that time. It was not happening. We've been here 2 years. The people who have been here at least 4 years realized when we did that, we made it very clear that it was a temporary program. So please do not do the association talking points. I know you're an employee, but that does not give you the right to make it up. That is not true, just so you all understand that. That's another frustration that we have up here is different people interpret things differently in that way. A year ago, when we had to make these cuts, 2 board members decided that they didn't want to participate. So 4 responsible board members made the cuts. Unfortunately, as we've said, we gave directive and certain staff, for whatever reason, the process, however that happened, they did not do what we had said. Therefore, now it made this almost double the problem that we would have had if we would have done it right the first time. I will say this. I am more than willing to do this, but I am not going to vote for any budget, and I've already told the county this, and I'm sure they're not happy to hear that. I will not vote for any of these budget cuts unless it's a unanimous board, because I think it's irresponsible for certain members to decide for whatever reason that they have that they're not going to participate because they didn't like that they took this or they didn't like that they took that. I will only approve this if it's a unanimous board, because we all need to understand that we all have a responsibility. And that has been missing for a while now. And so, again, we have a new board member coming up in December. He's going to have to be brought up to speed. I'm pretty sure his first board meeting where he has to decide what to cut, $42 million worth of cuts is going to be a big shock to him. But he needs to understand that that's going to be happening. But again, this, well, let them vote for it. We won't vote for it for whatever reason we want to not vote for stuff. I'm not going to go along with that anymore. All of us have a responsibility to do this. There's going to be cuts in there that I don't like. I'm pretty sure there's going to be cuts that none of us like. But we have a responsibility to do what's right for our district. And I have said this before, and I know every time I say it, the association gets angry with me. We are not a jobs program in this district. I understand that lots of people depend on their jobs, but we are here because the students are here, not the other way around. And back when the ESSER funds, we did start saying, we need to start ramping down. We need to start cutting those positions because they're all temporary. That is when we found out that they had started telling teachers that it was a full-time position. That is when we found that out. And we started ramping that down. And we told people that all these positions were going to be eliminated. And as we eliminated positions, people were going to be laid off because that was the nature of temporary funding, which ESSER funds were, right? That was a mistake that was made during, and we were here, I was here. I'll take that responsibility as well for not making sure that that was started under that term. But again, I won't stand up here and let people start making the narrative, as we just made the theme, that, oh, there's plenty of money out there, and if we're bad, if we don't give it to you, and then that narrative has to stop. That narrative has to stop. And trying to rewrite history does not help. All the original people were told that was a temporary position. Somewhere along that last administration, and again, I'm not going to point fingers because I don't know who told who to do what, but they suddenly became being told that it was full-time positions, and that's how we got into trouble. By the time we found out, we tried to eliminate some of those positions last year, And again, for whatever reason, certain people in the district decided that our authority wasn't valid, and they did other things for whatever reason. At whose direction, I don't know who that was. But we started this down, but we're here now. And again, the only thing I have to say is that I will not vote for it unless it's a unanimous here, because we all have to realize that we can't hide behind whatever you're hiding behind. You can't. I don't want somebody to get mad at me. Everybody's going to get mad at us. But this has to be all of us or none of us. So with that, I don't know if you have any comments to make on that, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for willing to come out every time I called, and for taking my calls on the weekends, and for working closely with me. And, you know, Debbie Deal's not missing. I know some people think that she's missing in action. Debbie's here. She's still been working with us on making sure that we are moving forward to look for those savings and to ensure that we are planning for our future, for our students. This is difficult, and also having that opportunity of being a CBO and running finances in a district. This is a big task, and I'm going to take it on, no matter what has happened here with the board and their ties for these past few years. I'm new, and I'll still say I'm new because it's only November, so maybe in January I won't be new anymore, but I'm new. I inherited this, and I'm going to do my best to fix this.
Thank you guys for coming out, and I know your team's out in the back. Thank you all for helping out. I know you've been spending a lot of time in our district, in the valley, so at least the weather's nice now, so it's a little bit better. So thank you all for coming out.
Thank you very much, and thank you for recognizing the team. I appreciate it.
All right, moving on, item 6.2, Pantone, 2024-25 LCAP update.
Well, Scott's a little taller than I am, so hold on one second. Good evening, members of the governing board and Superintendent Esparza. My name is Debbie Deal, and I'm here to help and assist the district tonight with presenting an update to the LCAP plan. With the new program that we built in the spring with all of your directors and staff at the district office, we are now able to track very efficiently and very timely each goal and each action to your LCAP, and we're able to give you those updates throughout the year. So tonight, we plan on giving you a complete update on both the budget, how much we've spent to date, and also how much we have remaining. So with that, we're going to share the presentation with you. And then if you have any questions, we're happy to address those at the end. So the first slide that you see is that the district has 5 very separate goals, totaling just over 201, almost $202 million. And so all of this expenditure, all of these balances, all of these budgets are threaded into your system budget in Galaxy. So you have absolutely real-time information in front of you, which is really super exciting. It no longer takes days to get this information, to provide updates, and it allows the staff to be able to monitor those goals and actions and to evaluate whether those goals and actions are actually working for the district and to make mid-year changes if necessary. So in goal number 1, for example, the budget of $121,332,387. To date, the district has spent $89,200, I'm sorry?
89 million.
89 million, that's right. $219,164. And for the rest of the year, we have remaining $32,113,223. And we're going to go over some of the highlights that we see so far in this current fiscal year. So Karen, please.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Karen Petney, the Director of State and Federal Accountability. And what we want to do tonight is to highlight some of the actions that are having the greatest impact on our students. So in preparing this presentation, I asked all the directors to share with us how are the actions in the LCAP impacting students. And so you'll see here, there are 4 items. iReady Diagnostic, tutor.com, which is a 24/7 online tutoring platform that students can access on any subject. Prisms, which is an immersive virtual reality math program that our students in grades 7 through 11 are participating in. And also News ELA, which is a highly interactive, high-interest online reading platform for students where teachers can monitor their progress. And then we're going to also go in, there's 2 slides for Goal 1 because there are a lot of highlights. These highlights in this section are, they're designed to create a well-rounded educational experience for our students and to meet them in their learning style and interest because it is diverse. Our students have diverse learning styles. So we have credit recovery and online learning. And so this is for students who need to recover credits, and it offers high-quality lessons for them to do so. We have a K-12 alignment for STEAM, our science, technology, engineering, arts, and math program in 11 of our elementary schools. And so as those students move up to middle school and high school, they are prepared for these courses at the middle and high school level. And we also have an expansion of access to college and credit courses. This year, with new pathways in health and education, our students have access to over 20 courses that they can take at COD for college credit. So this is a combination of both intervention and also enrichment for our students.
The second goal that we're going to go over with you is really around access to health and wellness to ensure that social, emotional, and academic success for our kids. So the LCAP budget originally presented to you in June, $61 million, almost $62 million. To date, we have spent $22 million of that, and we have remaining, as you can see, $39.6 million. We're going to go over some of the highlights of this particular section of the LCAP. This is all related to Goal 2.
I also want to point out, when we look at the year-to-date expenditures through October 31st, but in that number also is encumbered the salaries for this year and any contracts that we might have committed to for this year, as well as materials and supplies that have been purchased. So in this Goal 2, these actions are supporting our students with their academic growth, their social emotional health, and also helping them to face challenges and successes in their future. Some highlights from Goal 2 are the transformational model, which fosters a healthy, supportive environment where students are building positive relationships and also interpersonal skills, expanded learning. And this offers after-school, non-school day, and summer activities for our students TK through 12, all of our students. And the expanded learning activities are based on academic standards and best practices. And then for addressing our students' social emotional wellness and mental health, we have wellness centers at all of our middle schools and our high schools. And at these wellness centers, students are learning in a supportive environment. They're building essential skills for adapting to new situations, connecting with family and community, and when needed, restoring relationships.
Thank you, Karen. I'm sorry?
You're welcome.
Oh, you're welcome. Goal 3. This is really about our partnerships with the parent and the community through effective communication for student success. In this particular budget section, we have $4.5 million. We have encumbered or spent $3 million, and we have $1.5 million left. The highlights, Karen will go over with you. Very important to our parent and community groups. Thank you, Karen.
So these programs are designed to build a strong foundation for student success, both within the classroom and without. And we have our district parent workshops, which are offered each month here at the district office and also available via Zoom on a number of topics that parents were surveyed to see what topics they're interested in, and that is how the agenda was made and the itinerary was made for the workshops this year. We also, at each school, have a parent liaison and a parent center, and the parent liaison works with parents, providing training for them on ARIES or Parent Square, also providing workshops at the school level. And then we have our community engagement activities, which are an opportunity for both our students and families to be connected with resources outside of our district, our community resources.
Just remember that with each one of these goals and actions, there's many metrics that are behind these to evaluate whether or not we are meeting those goals and what we thought we could do. This also gives the board and the staff an opportunity to update those throughout the year. If you find that one particular section isn't working as well as you thought it would, you can make some changes, and the LCAP is that local plan in which you can make those changes. In goal number 4, this is about professional learning. Slated $14 million in this particular section, very important to support that professional learning opportunity to staff. And year-to-date expenditures with those encumbrances, almost $10 million, with a remaining of $4.3 million. A real important section to your LCAP plan because it supports all the other platforms. So Karen, let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so goal 4 is about building capacity of all of our staff members here at CVUSD to build a comprehensive support system for our students. So we're focused on enhancing instructional quality, promoting literacy, strengthening teacher effectiveness, and fostering a safe and supportive school environment, all of which are going to contribute to student outcomes, improve student outcomes. And some of the highlights for goal 4 are the professional development that is ongoing throughout the year, in the summer, throughout the year, on our non-student PD days, on our staff development Wednesdays, a continual thread of PD throughout the year. Also our letters program, the language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. To date, we have 160 teachers who are either in training or have been trained in this program. We have induction coaches that work with our new teachers, and so this helps our new teachers to be able to create effective learning plans for their students. And also recently we had crisis prevention intervention training for our transportation staff, which is a behavior management training. And so it's not just for certificated, we're looking to build capacity of everyone, administrators, classified, certificated. And that is what goal 4 is all about in our LCAP.
The last goal, goal 5, this is a brand new one for this year. And so as the district met a certain metric for a particular school, then the goal 5 covers that. And so we do have one school that qualified, and there aren't many schools throughout the state that have qualified under this section. So it was added a little later in the process. So Karen, maybe you can talk about that a bit more.
Sure. So La Familia qualified as for this equity multiplier for 2 reasons. They have a non-stability rate of higher than 25%, meaning students who begin the school year It's the percent of students who begin and end the school year at the same school. So because their non-stability rate is over 25%, they qualified. And then also they have a student enrollment of low-income students over 70%. And so that is how they qualified. And you'll find that most continuation high schools are the ones who qualified for this funding because of those two, the first criteria, the stability rate. And so what La Familia is trying to do is build a program to engage their students and build an enrichment and engagement program for their students by providing academic support, wellness support, and also expanded learning opportunities both on campus and then within the community. And this is where their dollars are going, and this is their plan for their student success.
So it takes a little bit of time to develop this particular goal because this is brand new for this fiscal year. And so this will take a little bit more time. I think in February on the next update, we'll have a little bit more information for you. But at this time, if you had any additional questions, we can answer those for you. Just let us know.
Okay, you had a question?
Oh, I mean, you mentioned metrics, and I'm sure that each goal has, different metrics that we're using, but I'd be interested to learn a little bit more about the metrics and how we're measuring success and things like that, and I'd just like to kind of see a little bit more for my personal.
In late January, February, when we bring our LCAP mid-year update, we will have all the metrics for you. There are, because we have the 8 state priorities, there are specific metrics that we include in our LCAP that must be included, and that's how we do measure the effectiveness.
And one last thing, in terms of these metrics, I think it would be important for us to look into making it accessible for the public, right, to keep us accountable and ensuring that, we're transparent about what services are being supported through the LCAP. And I know for our parents, our community members, there's been a lot of, interest around our LCAP and transparency and just being able to track a little bit better. So thank you.
This is a brand new 3-year plan, and it had metrics already attached. And several of these sections will hit more than one of the 8 state priorities. Some of them hit 2 or 3, some of them just target 1, but there's different metrics, and those metrics are used to create a platform where we can actually see if something is working or we think it's going to work, and then we put it in, and then we can measure it. But the beauty about this new program, in conjunction with those metrics and with the LCAP, is that we can actually see the dollars that are going towards these metrics as well, and see if that's working for us, if we need to make some changes in February. Be happy to bring that back in February for you.
Also want to share one key source of metrics is the California dashboard, which is going to be released next week. And so it will have CAS data from 23-24, graduation rate, college career indicator. So many of the metrics that we use in our LCAP will be available next week. So.
Board Member Plus.
Yes, I had very much the same question around metrics. And now that you mentioned that some of them are based on the dashboard, I think we're going to have maybe a tough time deciding what programs are working or not, because, how do you know that it was program A versus B that helped improve, hopefully that's what we're going to see, improve attendance, for example, right, or things like that. So I am very curious to see how we can start thinking about the metrics that start connecting those links. And my other question is, with our budget situation, I don't know that we're going to be able to continue everything that's in the LCAP, and my commitment has always been that we need to honor the intent of the LCAP and use it for supplemental and concentration. Unfortunately, our LCAP a lot of times has carried on other things that I think should have been funded through general, not because it wasn't serving that complementary or supplementary role.
Right.
But I do think we need to start looking at that sooner in light of the cuts that are coming, and that we also start having conversations with our community. I know there were complaints historically around how the LCAP has been approached and the type of conversations that are had with our community, in the sense that they are very curated, right? It's like we go and tell them what we want them to know. And that is unfair to our residents, our community members, our stakeholders. I think they need to be aware of the rawness of all this and be part of informing the decisions that we're going to be making. So the sooner that we start having those conversations and really shifting the way that we're having conversations in those LCAP meetings is going to be helpful.
Yes, I think we do need to start early as possible, and we do have an LCAP advisory committee meeting coming up on December 4th, and we will be addressing some of these items.
Thank you both for the presentation. I have a comment. Debbie, thank you for plugging in Galaxy. I think, like in any program, getting real-time data as it relates to funding, it's a special treat, right? Because normally we'll assign a budget, and then at the end, we don't really know where we're at in terms of our spending, and that innovation of adding, and using that program so that we have real-time numbers is very telling, right? When we talk about metrics, I really challenge staff, right? Because as we get information, you're getting it probably, the boots on the ground are getting it as fast as it's coming, right? And when we could sit here as a board and say, oh, I need more metrics, and then you give me so much information, I could say, well, I don't need that much information. Can you narrow it back down? And it's been that. It's too much information. It's not enough information. But I really challenge staff to be able to recognize what's working and pivot and come back and make a recommendation to the board, especially in these challenging times that we have on the financial question, to come back and say, hey, I really believe this online tutorial thing, we had X amount of money. We're really not getting, a lot of added benefit. The tutors that are assigned after school are doing a better job. I don't know. I think I guess I want to leave you, or the comment that I want to make is that I challenge staff to really be assertive and to make decisions and to bring them to the board, because we all got to be better right now. We got a real big challenge in front of us, and I think us being successful is going to be a relationship between what you guys are doing out every day and what this board gets to decide on. So challenge staff to just, don't be afraid to pivot.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
So thank you both for all the information. I think it's important. And I know that before, maybe it'll come in your February report, but before it was tied also to positions, right? So I know that the LCAP is filled with positions, and I know that the intent of the LCAP is to always, provide that support for our students, right? Mm-hmm. So I saw some things that I liked, and then, and I know it's difficult, right? Because you want to take a year or two of data to see if it works, and then make decisions. But just want to thank you for your work, and I want just people to understand that a lot of the stuff that's tied in the LCAP, and it's good, it's working, but it's also tied to positions and support the funding for those positions in our school district. So thank you.
Welcome.
Trustee Jimenez, did you want to add to anything? No, not yet. I think that's it. Thank you both.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, let's try to get moving on. So I was told that the way I'm supposed to ask for the vote, student trustee, we're supposed to ask you first, and then we do it. So trying to get it right today. Last board meeting, I messed it all up, so that was on me. But we're gonna get it right this time. So just so you know, I'm gonna call on you first on those votes. So And then I'll ask the board as a whole. All right? You all right with that? Or you want a little practice first? So. All right, well, we'll do a couple of them so you can just kind of understand what we're working on, and then the rest of them, we'll go back to that. Okay. All right, moving on. Action item 8.1, Maldonado, approval to open a purchase order with compressor design and services for parts and repairs.
Did you miss 7?
Did you miss 7-1, Joey?
Did I miss one?
7-1 and 2?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the 7. I went straight to 8. Sorry, 7.1, I'm sorry. Mr. Nichols, requesting approval of agreement with AMN Healthcare, Inc.
Motion for approval?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions?
Just a clarification on whether these services are in person or virtual.
These, I believe, are virtual, correct?
In person.
Oh, these are in person? Okay. Yep. Okay. I know one of them was and one of them wasn't, I think.
So it's in person?
Huh?
They're in person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So,
Just don't know, people on Zoom can hear.
yeah. Well, if we can find them, we'll hire them. That's the hard part. 7.1, sorry, did I have a motion and a second? Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Student trustee?
Aye.
Trustee Garcia, you want to vote on this one or not? 7.1?
In favor.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item 7.2, again, Mr. Nichols requesting approval of agreement with Aya Healthcare, Inc.
So move.
Have a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Trustee Jimenez? Aye? Okay.
Aye.
Yeah.
I just have the same question. I'm assuming it's, I don't know if you were answering for both, but these are in-person services as well. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Huh?
Yeah, she voted yes.
Yeah, I did her first. Changing it a little bit. Okay, now item 8.1, Maldonado, approval to open a purchase order with compressor design and services for parts and repairs. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Have a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any questions for this? No questions? Trustee Jimenez?
In favor.
Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item 8.2, again, Maldonado, approval to submit resolution 2025-19 to submit application for the Environmental Protection Agency EPA grant for purchases of 4 electric buses.
Motion?
No second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions? Trustee Jimenez?
In favor.
Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item 8.3, Ms. Torres, acceptance of special domestic system installation agreement and the standard domestic water system installation agreement between Coachella Valley Water District and Coachella Valley Unified School District for the North Shore Elementary School.
Motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions? Trustee Jimenez?
In favor.
Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item 9.1, Dr. Makowitz, approval of new job description for coordinator of wellness and attendance. Do I hear a motion?
A motion to table this item.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to table the item.
Just curious about the rationale for tabling.
We have budget discussions, and we said that we talked about having new jobs.
This is a job description, right?
Yeah, it's
Like
a
we're
classified.
not opening the position.
Motion to
or-
approve,
I mean,
Well,
I just
we
want
have a motion on the
clarification, though.
Yeah, was that it?
Just for clarification purposes, the way I was reading this allows, I mean, it just sets the description, but I don't know that it means that we're going to open it and go higher, but maybe I'm wrong about the implications of here.
Which job description?
This is a replacement position. This is a current position that was a certificated coordinator. It does oversee our attendance, so it is a management position. We have asked for it to become classified in efforts to support the reductions.
Mr. Cunha, I know our student trustee seconded the motion.
No, Valerie did.
Oh, Valerie did? Okay. I call the question, Mr. Cunha.
The coordinator.
Just for a second. Oh, you'll vote at the end.
It's a motion.
Oh, there. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those in favor to
Table.
close
To table.
discussion? Okay, yeah.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails 2-4.
Mr. Cunha, I'd like to make a new motion to
Hold on.
approve staff.
Yeah,
Student
hold
trustee?
on. No, even with that, we're supposed to vote on whether to close discussion and
No,
vote.
You made a
No, you don't.
motion, we had discussion.
You can't just say call the question. We have to vote then to close question.
No, he asked
And
to
then,
call the question.
I
No,
know.
we don't. We've never done that.
We've never done that.
We've never done
well,
that.
then we've done it wrong every
No,
time.
you don't.
Well, we'll go back
Does
and
that
change everything
invalidate all
again.
of our votes in the past?
So the cornerstone of Robert's rules is that the majority rules, but the minority gets to be heard. So we have to vote, if we're voting to close discussion, then vote for that, and that's fine. But you have to vote. You can't just say that.
Well, you did. You called the question. You
Right,
voted.
right, no, let's, I don't want to stay here all night. We got to get a student trustee to do her homework. We're going to reverse that last vote. So the next vote is, he called the question, the vote is to close discussion, or do you want to discuss some more?
That's what we're voting on, whether to close the
I asked for
discussion or not.
discussion. They asked the question to Mr. Arredondo. Mr. Arredondo answered the question.
President Acuna, we called the
hang on,
question.
hang on.
We voted, we called
I
the
understand,
question.
hang on. So,
And there's no more discussion.
so they called for the question. So we're going to vote to end discussion now. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Student trustee.
In favor.
Now, we're going to vote on your motion to table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Student trustee.
In favor.
Motion fails 2-4.
Mr. Acuna, I motion to accept staff's recommendation on this item 9.1.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Student trustee?
I abstain.
Okay. Good call. All right. Item 10, consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be acted upon in one motion. There will be no discussion of these items prior to the time the board considers the motion unless members of the board or staff request special items to be, specific items, to be discussed and/or removed from the consent calendar, in which event the items will be considered separately. The superintendent, assistant superintendent of ed services, business and finance, and human resources recommend the approval of all consent calendar items. Do I have a motion?
President Acuna, sorry to interrupt, but could we recognize there's been a hand over here from Dr. Makowitz?
I'll get to you in a second.
Okay.
I already know what you're going to say.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
All motion.
Do I have a second?
And
A second, I have a,
Considering we'll still, whoever wants to pull stuff. We have a motion in a second.
Mr. Acuna,
What-
can I,
What items would you like? Well, let's go this way first.
Okay.
What items would you like to pull?
12.7.
Board Member Garcia?
That's the
Same
one I
one?
want.
Okay.
12.5.
12.5. Mr. Gonzalez, anything? No. Okay. I am not going to pull the item that I know you want to discuss. There's an item, it's 28 on the certificated report, personnel report, so if you want to address that item really quickly.
Yes, on item 28 under 14.1, the Human Resources Personnel Report, we need to do a change of start date from November 19th and change it to December 2nd. And that will allow for us to complete logistics, transportation, and determine whether ACES is being involved in the program.
So can I have a motion to add that as an amendment to the consent calendar?
That's fine.
Can you repeat which one?
Yes,
was
can
it?
you repeat?
We're just changing the start date of the program.
Yeah, but 28?
That's the one.
What
with the
number?
intervention program.
Oh, okay.
Number 28 under the certificated report.
Yeah.
The first date,
It's part 7.
November 19th to December 2nd.
It's the start date that's changing of the program, to give them more time to actually implement it in with the program.
Thank you.
Yes. So who made the original motion, Mr. Gonzalez? Do you
Motion,
accept
yeah.
that as an amendment?
I do.
The second?
I do.
Okay. So we are voting on the consent calendar minus those two items with the amendment. Student trustee?
In favor?
Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. 12.5. I believe Ms. Paz, that was yours?
12.5. That was my similar question. So here's the thing for me. Telling me what the fund is supposed to do does not answer my questions. I can research what the funds are meant to do. So with this one and with previous ones I voted against, that's what I tend to get when I ask questions, a description of what the fund is intended for. Thank you. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking for a less vague spending plan that does not just generally say I need supplies, right? And that's a big bucket when I just hear supplies. I don't know. I mean, are we going to be running out of supplies and that's why we need more? I don't know. So that's just an example, and that is why I wanted to pull this item.
So what is your recommendation for what you want to do?
I'm going to wait for you all to make a motion and then I'll vote.
Well, no,
I'm not going to vote.
No, I'm just going to say, do you want to pull it?
should we
and give her-
table it?
To actually add the
You know,
information?
it's 40,000. I don't know that it's in the big scheme of things when other things have been in the millions that have been presented and approved by this board. So to me, it's not a huge number that's going to make a difference. I'm just not going to be voting on it, but if
I
you
think,
all want to.
well, in my case, I think what we went back to, they all got to do it the same way.
Okay.
And so in my mind, that's it. It's not about the amount. If it's $1 million or 40, it doesn't matter. The board requested, I wasn't the one that requested it, other board members requested it, that we do them all the same. So again, I have felt in the past that it had been targeted at a couple of certain programs, but now the board said, in a sense, we're going to do all of them.
Yeah.
So
I'll motion to bring this back with a more detailed plan.
I'll second.
Comment?
yes.
Yeah, I think one thing so I agree we need a little bit more information. I don't know if there's, because how can we communicate to staff, this is exactly what we want and need to see, like to your point about, when we ask, or when the question is asked, right, we're provided this kind of broad thing. So I wonder if there's something specific, and maybe it's not the 200-page, list of supplies,
no.
but, a little bit more information, like, 10,000 of, supplies for training material.
And I think it's a case-by-case scenario on how for this one in particular, right, it's for uniforms. Part of it is for uniforms. I'm just very curious, like, okay, usually, because we do this every year, I mean, this is how many uniforms we've bought in the past. We've given them all out, or you know what, last year we didn't give them, and we still have half of them, right? I don't know that information. So in this particular scenario, something like that, so that I can feel comfortable that we don't just have offices full of uniforms somewhere. or that we need more. So I think in this particular scenario, something like that. So it's not a full, don't give me like a list, sizes and from where and all that, but I really want to understand the rationale for what you're asking for and how much we're going to be spending in the category.
President, call the question.
Anything else? No. Okay, we have a motion, second, to bring this item back with the requested details on it. Trustee Jimenez? Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 12.7, I believe, was yours.
Yes, so I just want to state for the record that I know Mr. Soto, and he's doing some good work in our school district, but I question, we have a contract in place with him, and why we have to now take action on another contract for the 25-26 school year. So.
Mr. Acuna, can I be recognized?
Sure.
Mr. Arredondo, I find it puzzling. I watched you brag about how great this week-long, have you attended the GDS program?
I've attended sessions by Mr. Soto before.
So you completed the program, the five-day program?
I did not complete the program, nor did I ever say I completed his program.
But you did. I remember you talking about how good it was.
I have gone to his program, and I'm not questioning his academic success or his strengths. I'm questioning the fact we have a contract in place already, okay? And this is a second contract, 2.5 months into his first contract. That's all I'm stating.
Mr. Acuna, it's very troubling to me to watch the two at the end just regurgitate everything that the teachers union has put on them, probably because one works for the teachers union and the other one's campaign was financed by them. And there's got to be something wrong with this. I mean, it's unethical, it's wrong, and
it's a matter of fact. We have a contract in place with Mr. Soto. Thank you.
Mr. Acuna, so I'd like to motion to accept staff's recommendation on this item.
Do I hear a second?
Yeah, I have a comment whenever I can make the comment.
Right now?
Yeah.
I think what this reminds me of too, it's something that I've requested, and I know it's going to take us some time given all the work that's been happening on the budget. But knowing, I had asked this in the context of knowing how much we've spent and allocated based on grants. So like we received grants, okay, this much money, this is how much we've spent, this is how much the balance is. I think what I see lacking here is, again, I don't know that in the 2-month contract, for example, that maybe we overused all the hours that we contracted for, if that's the case, or that there's additional needs. Where are we? So I think that's information to moving forward that would be helpful for us to have when we're making some of these decisions on the grants, on contracts that we have, things like that. My concern around this, and again, it's not, I don't want to minimize, but if we keep spending like, okay, in the big scheme of the millions of dollars, 100,000 is nothing or 200 is nothing, and we justify decision after decision in that way, I'm a little bit concerned given cuts that we do need to have. And because this contract is not necessarily, is like in the classroom, I know it impacts the quality and it's important, but this is a type of program that I would be like, okay, maybe that's where we need to be leaner on. So that's my concern with approving this contract right now, nothing to do with any other comments that have been made.
Mr. Acuna, just a final comment. I can appreciate the concern that Ms. Paz has, and a very, very valid point. I do believe, however, to the spirit of what you said, Mr. Acuna, is that when we get ready to make these tough decisions, that we're all going to have to agree. And I don't care how many study sessions we have, I can sit in every study session and I'm not going to understand what the superintendent understands, right? And so in the spirit of that, of me trusting the superintendent and her leadership, if this is a recommendation, unless I have a specific issue with something, I'm going to support it. Because it's going to take supporting the superintendent so that we can have a successful experience in trying to take on these challenges. And so, I can appreciate what Ms. Paz says, But the gentleman saying that he don't support it when he brags about how good it was because he went, right? I have a problem with that, because at that point, I think it's personal. I have my motion is on the floor, Mr. Cunha. My motion is to accept staff's recommendation, respecting whatever the outcome is.
Okay, hang on. I need a second for that. I'll go ahead and second it so we can continue the discussion. You had a question?
Yeah, I don't know if staff can provide a little bit more context. I mean, looking at the dates, right? This says 25-26 school year. That's how I'm reading the description, right? And I guess is the scope of work or the proposal of service. So yeah, if we could get a little bit more context.
Okay.
Maybe we can speak to it now, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I'll say so.
Okay.
So in regards to this contract coming, it's for 25-26, so the hours haven't been spent. We've gotten a lot of great feedback, and it's something that we haven't done. We've seen our test scores for the past 10 years, and what hasn't happened, and what leadership was asking for that true professional development and leadership trainings for them to be able to go into the classrooms and work with teachers. And also our student trustee talked about gradual release. That's a part of this. And this is something that they're learning. She got to see it firsthand. It's happening at every school. During my listen and learn tours, we've been getting a lot of feedback on, is this gonna end? We need to make sure that something's gonna stick, because finally we have something that's working, that we're able to, talk to each other, and it's across the entire district. It's not this program over here and this program over there and this over here and this over there. There's actual consistency on what the elements of the work that Mr. Soto brings to the district. And I do have some of the directors that can talk a little bit more, because they're actually walking the classrooms. And here, I know that they've already visited over 200 classrooms and looking at those opportunities to be able to support the teachers and to be able to give the principals the confidence to support their teachers as well.
I have a question, and I heard the comments at least earlier from the staff. Thank you. But is it then a little bit premature? And is there a way maybe to change the motion so that this comes back, but in light of everything else? Because I do think this is a core component. Our staff need that support, and I agree with you. I mean, as having been a former teacher, how one thing gets introduced one year and the next year it's gone. I don't want to see that either, and maybe this is one of the core things that we continue, but given that it's for 25-26, we're going to have to be making decisions in December. Right. Could this be brought back in the larger picture so that, at least for my end, I would feel more comfortable, right? Again, because I don't have anything against the services, it's just me lacking the whole picture of where we're going.
And we can bring it back, and we can bring it back, and they can present on more of the data and talk about the consistency. Probably when we brought it the first time, we should have had a 2-year plan for us to be able to roll this out to ensure that, our staff has that consistency that they've been asking for.
Ms. Paz, I can appreciate, again, the feedback. What I find troubling is that we have a very serious program that is making a very serious impact on the greatness of our school district, and the testimony is always positive, including the testimony from the gentleman, but in the spirit of what the union's doing, right? They're attacking the program, because they'll attack anything that we do. We could bring Jesus tomorrow and they'll attack him, right? And I'm watching the antics, right? And in the spirit of my motion, it's basically reacting to the antics of this illogical approach to what we have on the table. We all know it works.
I call a question, President.
We all know it works. We all know.
Yeah, everything works.
We all know it works. We all know the results that are happening, but because of this environment that we're in, we're caught in this situation where it's just immature. It's irresponsible. It's bad leadership.
And I agree with your comments, but I think me and everyone knows me that my recommendations are not reactive. I can be criticized, I can be whatever you want to say. My recommendations are never reactive
never
to
said
what
that.
I'm
Yeah, I would
hearing.
never say that, yeah.
So therefore, I'm providing an alternative that I'm saying would work for
Board Member
me.
Gonzalez, would you
but
amend
that's
your
it.
motion to
Absolutely.
bring it back and with the information so we can
Okay, I think
move
there's some
forward?
comments that need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's,
I respect Ms. Paz enough.
Can we move forward and bring it back?
You can make a statement. Huh? Yeah, I know. We haven't finished talking.
Yes, just to add, it's not just the work, you're not just seeing it in the elementary, middle, and high school, but we're also seeing it in the adult school. So being there this week and seeing firsthand and listening from the adult learners that now they're taking ownership of the learning, and even our English language learners that are learning the language, they're learning about the success criteria, learning intentions. The adult school teachers are going through the gradual release lessons so that the adult learners can identify with what they're learning with that real world. So it's not just at the elementary, middle, and high school, but it's also being seen at the adult school.
This doesn't, just to clarify, this doesn't delay any of that, because this is for 25, and we're meeting hopefully in a few weeks, and this can come back then, because we need to meet to make decisions for December, so.
One of the other reasons why we're bringing it forward so soon is to alleviate Gary getting booked by his many other districts. And we know that with our sub issues that we do have, and we are pulling out teachers on several of the occasions, that we do want to try to book his time early in this school year in preparation for next school year, so he doesn't get booked up and we're not stuck with every Friday that Gary has left over when we know we are already, challenged with our sub issues. So that's the other reason we are bringing it forward, because the sooner that we know that he's on the books, then we can start booking out his dates sooner than later.
What does our current contract end?
And just to add one last comment before we go back to our seats, we also, one of our goals is to make sure that all the principals have the information to start the school year in June, because we have been starting late with them, and we start in August, we come into the trainings, and they don't have the dates already established for the year, even for the first semester. So one of our goals is to make sure that by June, they have all the information for professional development, for their coaching days, and everything that Mr. Soto is gonna do with us, hopefully. But I do wanna say that we are getting a lot of great feedback from the principals, things such as, we've never received feedback this specific. We never received the support with all these, different approaches and different strategies that we can utilize in the classroom to improve instruction for our students. But we really want to make sure that our principals are ready to move on in August.
Thank
So
you.
by giving them all the information in June.
And we have a contract that doesn't end until June, so this would start July 1st.
Right.
We can plan from now until June.
Yeah.
I'm asking for less than a week and a half, or,
Board
so-
Member Garcia, you had a comment?
Thank you. Yes, so I understand that this could be an excellent program. I myself have heard mixed reviews, but regardless, I'd want to see official metrics so that we know that the dollars that we are committing are going to be something that is worthwhile for our educators, our staff, so that they're as prepared as they can be for our students, right? So that's all very important to me, but at this point, just like so many have said, at this point in the school year, it doesn't make sense to me without that information. Some of us take our fiduciary responsibility very important, we take it very seriously. When you see that I agree with transparency, that's a value. And I don't think that's a value that is a bad one or should be vilified. I also don't see it an issue to believe in union values. We have 2 unions as our employees, And all that means is due process. I don't know why anyone would be against due process. When we agree to contracts, that is both parties. So as long as everyone is following due process, that's what we need. So as far as that goes, and I really wouldn't even want to begin to talk about ethics, because if we begin to talk about ethics, we would be here all night. I'm finished.
Mr. Redondo.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Vargas.
No, I don't have additional.
Did you want to say something? I know she's been telling you her version over there, but I mean, that's why you're here, to express your opinions. all
Well,
our
as
board
a
members.
student,
Huh?
as a student
Mhm.
who has firsthand seen the impact that graduate release and stuff like that has in a classroom, I personally love it. It's something that I feel like coming into the new school year, something that has helped me focus more in class and know exactly what I'm going to learn and how I'm going to learn it, and the step-by-step really helps me. But I do feel that it's too early on in the school year to make that decision, and I do agree with what Ms. Paz is saying about maybe giving it a little bit more time and looking over it on another time, you know? Yeah.
One final comment, though, and as someone who's been asking for, on different programs, tell me this, and how do we know it's working? I mean, I run programs through my nonprofit. I can tell you that if we really want to get that information, we're going to have to pay for it. Because it's not about just setting metrics. One thing we could set, it's like, how many people did we serve? We've gotten that. How many people, we can do that. It's not going to tell us whether the program is working. To do that, you really need to hire people who do program evaluation, and that can get us closer, and that is costly. So just putting it out there, because I know that I ask for these things as well, but I mean, we may not get the type of evaluation that would tell us whether a program is having the desired impact, but what we could get is how many people we're serving, right? And maybe that's, so I just wanted to put that out there.
So the motion is to table it?
I withdraw my motion, Mr. Acuna.
So, yes, well, I had asked you if you wanted to amend it,
I will,
to amend it, to bring it back with the information that was provided.
Absolutely, understanding that it's not going to hinder what we're already working on. I understand and respect the aggressiveness of staff understanding how valuable this program is, and making sure that we have the attention of the gentleman who's providing this leadership, right? So understanding, again, respecting Ms. Paz and the wishes of the dais, right? I would amend my motion to bring it back, and being that we have a little bit of time and understanding that we have some serious financial decisions to make here in the next month.
So the amended motion is to bring it back with information, a little more long-term, more robust information. That is the amendment that he take. I will also support that with my second on that information. Anybody else have anything to say?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
So I do want to make sure that everybody understands that there are monies for educational services that will not take away jobs. We need to have educational services and programs. So contracts like this and a few others doesn't mean that that's going to affect layoffs. So I don't want everybody to think that this is the same pot of money. So please be educated and know that there's money for educational programs and there's money for staffing.
So please bring that information. Thank you.
So again, just to be clear, the motion is to, I guess, table this and bring it back with all the information that has been requested. Got it? All right, so trustee Jimenez.
In favor.
Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Trustee Jimenez?
In favor.
Board, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Good night at 10:56, sorry.
I have a headache.
You have a headache?
Yeah.